Recently, I made a reaction to a video about the history and culture of Norway. It was very interesting. Norway clearly has a very rich history and culture, and one of the parts of that I wanted to learn more about was the famous people from Norway's history. I found this video. It's called Famous Norwegians, and yeah, I want to learn more. So tell me your favourite Norwegian. Who do you think is the most influential Norwegian ever? Who are you most proud of? Who's your favourite? Tell me why as well. Let's watch this one and we can learn more.
Back with another Norway video for you all, and this time it's going to be about famous Norwegians, both living and dead. Of course, this is not going to be a completely comprehensive list because damn, a lot of really cool Norwegians have done a lot of really cool things. We're going to start with the explorers. First of all, we have Roald Amundsen, who was the very first person to reach the South Pole. He was also the first person to traverse the Northwest Passage. The second person to mention is Thor Heyerdahl. Many of you maybe now had the opportunity to watch the movie Kon-Tiki. That was about his bamboo fleet experiment to cross the South Pacific on this raft made of balsa wood, which is absolutely insane. And he's of course a very famous explorer and anthropologist as well. Other solo adventurers worth mentioning are Erling Kagge, Børge Ausland, and of course Lars Monsen. Norway has...
Yeah, I mean, already this is not just important people to Norway, this is important people to the world. The first person ever to make it to the South Pole. There was also the person who was the Viking, who was the first ever person to touch down in North America, apart from obviously the indigenous people to North America, what is modern day Canada. And is that Leif Erikson? And yeah, it just shows Norway's importance in just not to Norway, but to history, the history of the world. Really having these amazing adventurers, explorers. Tell me what you think about those. Who's your favourite from them? Who do you think is the most important?
And has always had a lot of really famous figures within literature. One of the biggest names that I think I can mention is Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Ibsen was a playwright and a poet who lived during the 19th century. That's the 1800s for anyone else who does that in their head, which I do every time. He wrote plays like When We Dead Awaken, Peer Gynt, and of course Dollhouse, which is probably one of the most played plays in the entire world. He's probably considered Norway's Shakespeare. Another writer worth mentioning, I thought, is Roald Dahl. I know he's not actually Norwegian, but he does have Norwegian descent. Roald Dahl is also the author genius behind the books Matilda and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and other great stories as well. Other Norwegian poets and authors worth mentioning as well are André Bjerke, Ari Behn, Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson, Lars Saabye Christensen, and of course Knut Hamsun as well.
Yeah, tell me more about them. I don't really know much of them. Of course, I've heard of Roald Dahl. Obviously, he has Norwegian descent, which is interesting to know. The interesting thing about this is, like, the thing that always kind of blows me away is Norway's a country of about 5.5 million people, but it's really produced so many talented, important people in so many different areas, so much people in literature here as well. Tell me who you think the most important person in literature from Norway is.
When it comes to music, there is probably one Norwegian band that is more famous worldwide than any other Norwegian band, and that is, of course, Aha. Now it's a bit outdated for those of you who were born in the 90s.
Like,
of course, this was an 80s band, but it was massive, and they are of course known for their huge hit, Take On Me. And the guy who hits the high notes, his name is Morten Harket. Other than that, there's not a lot of really world famous popular music bands or artists that come out of Norway. There is of course the genre of black metal, which I will not go into because I don't know anything about it. But we have a lot of really good classical artists. We do of course have the Norwegian composer Edvard Grieg, who has composed the music piece Morgenstund, which I am convinced absolutely every person in the world has heard, because it's always used in movies when it's like morning and birds are chirping and the sun is shining. I can't unfortunately play it for you here because YouTube will, you know, whip me for it, but I will leave a link to it in the description below. Other classical music artists include Solveig Kringlebotn, who is a world famous opera singer, and Sissel Kyrkjebø, who is sort of like opera classically combined with a little bit of pop. She was also the Norwegian voice for Ariel in The Little Mermaid. Now when it comes to art...
Yeah, that's interesting as well, because I don't know when this video was recorded, maybe it was a while ago, but I know the DJs Alan Walker and Kygo are both from Norway, and they've been two of the biggest DJs over the last 5-10 10 years, maybe. I don't know how long. If it's, I don't think it's as long. Maybe the last 5-6 years. Definitely huge DJs. And the other singer I've seen on YouTube before, I think it's Aurora. Definitely a great voice. But maybe this video was recorded before they came to prominence.
You can see and maybe even physically
And tell me, what sort of artists are popular at the moment in Norway?
touch. We have a lot of different Norwegian artists for that. Most famous is of course Edvard Munch, who of course painted the
Scream.
world famous painting Scream.
Yeah.
Very attractive, looks like that. And then there is Gustav Vigeland, who has an entire park in Oslo, the capital of Norway, dedicated to him and filled with his works of marble statues of naked people. And then there's Theodor Kittelsen, who spent his entire painting career painting myths and story tales and sort of like mythical things. And if you're looking for something incredibly weird and odd, there is also the painter Odd Nerdrum, who paints a lot of erect penises and naked people. Now Norway doesn't.
Okay, so Norwegian artists like nakedness, nudity, penises. Where does that come from? Is that a thing in Norway? Yeah, recommend other Norwegian artists as well. We'd love to check out some of them and see who's your favourite Norwegian
We have
artist.
a lot of very world famous politicians, but we do have a few. For example, Gro Harlem Brundtland, who was the first and so far only female Prime Minister of Norway. And she was also the Director General for the World Health Organization.
Okay, this must be quite old then, because I know that Norway's had another female Prime Minister since then. I think it was 2013 until 2021 or 2022. So this must be maybe even recorded before 2013, this video actually.
And then of course we have the current Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg, who is probably most world famous because of all the media attention that the terrorist attacks in 2011 sort of brought onto his party. And last but not least, our functioning Minister President during the World War II, Vidkun Quisling, who was found out to be a traitor and a fascist when he turned Norway over to Hitler. Notable names in sports
Yeah, tell me more about that, because obviously one of the things I've been impressed with regards to Norway is how well the country's run. It's such a thriving economy, and I put that down usually to the government. So I would have thought that Norway has a lot more loved politicians or respected politicians. Again, maybe if this is over 10 years old, then a lot of the good politicians might have been from more recent years. Tell me who your favourite Norwegian politician is and why. Is there any that are very forward-thinking, innovative, important to Norway?
Names in sports include Ole Gunnar Solskjær, who has played for Manchester United and is a notable name within football. Cecilia Brækhus, who is the current and undefeated world champion in welterweight boxing. And of course, we have a long list of really accomplished good skiers like Bjørn Dæhlie and Vegard Ulvang and Petter Northug Jr. and tons more that are psycho because they are so incredibly fast on those little sticks.
Yeah, so I guess again this must be quite old, because obviously now we have like Haaland, Ødegaard. Norway has so many good football players now, man. It's like really a great generation. Even though we're in the same group, Scotland in the same group as Norway, Scotland doing a bit better this year anyway, which was unexpected, but Norway really has so many good footballers.
I also have a bonus name on the list of athletes, who is Harald V of Norway. Yes, that is the current king, who is a sailor, a champion, and a former Olympian. Lastly, worth mentioning...
Yeah, tell me again what about any other Winter Olympians? Who are the famous Norwegian Winter Olympians? Obviously, Norway being so dominant in the Winter Olympics, there must be a lot of great people who have won gold medals and appeared in the Winter Olympics for Norway.
The list of famous Norwegians are the businessmen and the entrepreneurs, the guys who make the dollar bills, yo. Of course, there is businessman and mountaineer Arne Næss Jr., there is real estate developer Olav Thon, and of course businessman Petter Stordalen, just to name a few of the richest people in Norway. Right guys, I hope you enjoyed this little list of...
Interesting, yeah, so tell me again, like, your favourite Norwegian entrepreneurs, business people, who are the inspirational people who are doing good things for Norway. But a great list, as I said. We go back to the fact of Norway being a country with a population of about 5.5 million people, but producing so many important, like, amazing people throughout its history, right back to 1,000 years ago in the days of the Vikings, being the first people to touch down in Canada. Great explorers, up to today with great sports people, great musicians. Tell me your favourite Norwegian ever. Thanks.